Hey there. So, in the couple of weeks, I basically had to take off because my computer blowed up. A lot of news around tabletop role-playing games happened, and I decided I would catch myself up on a lot of it and sort of go through it with you guys in a bit of like a news update on RPG stuff that I've noticed. If there's any other major events that you think I should know about that I don't cover here, put it down in the comments below because I'd probably like to know about it. So I'm just going to cover some of the like major standout points for the past while and in things that I've noticed in my little corner of the nerdosphere. So firstly, I'd like to get into some various Kickstarters and backer kits that seem to be going on because there's a ton of them that seem to be going on over the last while. Now, of course, like some of the big ones, like the Shadow Dark one and everything have finished already, but let's just deal with ones that are currently running or at least announced with like their pre-sign up type things. Of course, there is, I believe, a pre-sign up to get alerted for the Magnus archives from Monty Cook Games. So you're going to want to check that out. Next is one I really want to push out there. And that is the Vagabond RPG by Taran Pounds' Rebel Rouser Games. Frankly, please back this. If you're going to back one project right now, I mean, I would like you to back all of them if you can, but if you're going to back one project right now, please go to that one. I'm really looking forward to it. If you are familiar with like D&D 5e or Pathfinder 2nd edition or something, this will be within your comfort realm. Although it does very much have its own rule set on how things are. It's got 100% player agency, kind of like with Cypher, where the GM doesn't have to make any rolls. Taran does this partly because you can play this without a GM. There's a lot of standouts in the system I've been very impressed with. He's been live streaming all of the everything as he's been going through the design process and changing things and stuff like that. A magic system where you're cobbling together your own spells as you go instead of having to go through pre-done lists of them. A very in-depth like rest system where you actually like need proper like meals and comfort levels and stuff like that, or you're not going to get a lot of the stuff back on a rest, which is a big deal. It really adjusts your adventuring day. You're not just going to be like, oh, I'll take a long rest in a dungeon, I'm fine now. No, you're not. As well as the fact that death is meaningful. It's a lot more akin to Pathfinder 2nd edition than it is in D&D 5e in this regard. Like in 5e, you're kind of babied a little bit. Death is there, but it's almost harder to achieve. Whereas like in Pathfinder, you can get ground down pretty easily. Vagabond is very much in the whole, death is a thing. Death is a possibility. There are stakes at play, and sometimes the bad happens. So yeah, I'm very interested in it. It hasn't been on Kickstarter that long, and it's already almost halfway funded. So it's going to get funded. If I'm going to boost anything on the channel right now, it's going to be the Vagabond RPG because I think it looks pretty impressive. I like the concepts behind it, and it's for him. It's all about the design and what would be fun. I've watching the live streams of it. It's been very impressive so far. Check out Vagabond RPG. I'll put links for everything down below. Mr. Tarask. You may be familiar with him. He does a lot of role-playing game like reviews for systems and stuff like that. He's also done a Kickstarter for a Dungeons & Dragons 5e adventure called The Isle of the Dread Accursed. And it did pretty damn well, actually. Well, he's decided to do a conversion of it over to the Cypher system, because if there's something I think the Cypher system needs, it's more like full-length adventures rather than just the shorts. He is in the middle of doing that. This is a pre-sign-up. The actual Kickstarter, or actually backer kit, is not launched yet. It is just the pre-sign-up. But there's a special feature with the pre-sign-up. If you sign up for this like pre-sign-up thing, and then also back the backer kit when it officially launches, Monty Cook Games is going to give you 30% or 33% off one of the genre white books for the Cypher system. So if you want, say, Godforsaken, which is the genre book for fantasy settings in Cypher, which kind of would go pretty well with the Isle of Dread Accursed, you could pick it up for a third off from Honeycook Games. I mean, that's basically like getting the adventure for free while buying a white book. So it's kind of worth it. So I would check that out. I think it's going to be pretty nifty. Yeah, it seems like if you're at all interested in the Cypher system, especially if you do play in like fantasy settings and stuff, I think it's worth it. Check it out. So there's a Kickstarter by some of the usuals you've probably heard of, and some of them I've never heard of as well. But like, the people down in California land, some of them have been on Dimension 20, some of them have been on Critical Role, stuff like this. They want to start a news network for RPGs, just called Tabletop News. They wanted $200,000 for the first 10 episodes, and I think they're about to hit that mark, actually. They're doing pretty good. People seem to want a more regimented and formatted news source for RPG stuff. I mean, I don't personally know what it's going to be like in the end, but the Kickstarter is to just sort of get them kicked off, like get them going, get those first like 10 to a dozen episodes or whatever going. And from that point on, they're hoping to be self-sustaining with sponsors and advertisements and everything like this. I mean, it might not be a bad idea. It depends on how impartial they can be. Well, we all know that's a difficult thing these days, especially with news sources of any kind. As long as they're not in the pocket of any specific corporations or anything like that, I think I would be interested in a news source like this to get maybe a little less of the like doom and gloom drama generator, drama llama stuff that a lot of other channels do. That would be pretty nice. Just get me like the straight facts, give me the straight news without playing it up drama-y. I'm hoping that's what this is all about. So there's the Kickstarter for Tabletop News, and they are just about to hit their mark, just under the wire by the looks of it. They only have a few days left, but they're only just under that 200,000 like mark or whatever. So they're like pretty close. They're doing pretty good. So maybe check it out. I don't know if you're interested in that same type of thing. The Wild Sea Storm and Root by Felix Isaac. Looks like an interesting little RPG. It's its own standalone system. It's already met and exceeded its goal. They've stated there's a flavor to it that's kind of like, if you were to sit down and think like a little bit fairy tale-ish, maybe listen to like the soundtrack to like the game Bastion or something like that. They say that's the type of feel they're trying to bring forth with this RPG. It looks interesting. It's on Kickstarter right now. Like I said, it's already met its goal, so it's a nice safe one to check out. And maybe you want to see it, see what's going on. Larsen's Ledger. Larsen's Ledger. I'm not sure. Kind of looks almost Frenchish, so maybe Larsen's Ledger. I don't know. It's a 5e book of like treasures, trinkets, and stuff like this. It has blown past its goal. It is doing very well. So if you're looking for a D&D 5e book of like items and treasure and trinkets and all sorts of like goodness like that, you may want to check out this book, Larsen's Treasures. The Omen Sacrifice deck for Morkborg. I have read through the Morkborg book. I'm very interested in Morkborg. I've yet to sit down and play one yet. I was supposed to be in a meat grinder thing at one point, but unfortunately, the channel that was running it has been a little on the busy side. So I haven't gotten to try it out yet, but it is very much intriguing me. And I am very much looking forward to it. It is, it's already doubled its goal. This is not Morkborg itself. This is just the Omen Sacrifice deck. They're like coffin-shaped cards, which looks pretty neat. And it's something to do with the game mechanics. Like I said, I haven't got to play it yet, so I'm not sure. But this like super gritty, dark, ultra deadly meat grinder thing that you can like, the original RPG were able to like get in this like metal album case, and the stylizing it is amazing. And these like coffin shaped cards that go with it, which have already doubled its goal, and it still has a ton of time on it left. So This looks pretty cool. If you're at all interested in Morkborg, which I believe is Free League Publishing, which as far as I'm concerned, that's another publisher that can do no wrong these days. Definitely going to check that out. Guns Blazing. This is a smaller one. As I was like browsing around Kickstarter and whatnot, I kind of just stumbled upon it. Got some neat art on the inside. The cover art's kind of a little lackluster, but whatever. It's just the cover art. It's like an alternate history 1920s with these like magical and supernatural elements. It says it's inspired by like lighter RPG frameworks like Blades in the Dark. So it shouldn't be too crunchy or hard to get into. Something I'm interested in checking out eventually. I'm not sure if I'm going to back it yet, but it is something I might want to check out eventually. It looks kind of interesting. It's intriguing me in some ways. So maybe that's something I'll give a review on when it's reviewable. Another piece of news that I want to do right now is I want to announce officially, finally, a couple of the projects I've been working on. So the entire solo project is called Dungeon Slug. And Dungeon Slug is, I've kind of taken the idea of a roguelike video game and applied it to an RPG. Now, my group and I have been tinkering with this for years at this point. It originally started as like a 5e mod and then a Pathfinder 2nd edition mod, and then like it's gone through its paces, borrowing and modding on other systems until eventually I'm like, screw it, let's just make it its own ultralight system. Although your Overlord, which is like sort of like the character that doesn't go out and adventure, does like level and increase like a roguelike normally does, right? You progress even when your characters are dying every 2 seconds. So that is Dungeon Slug, and it's gonna be interesting. I've made it so that it's got a very like silly slapstick feel to it. Like the 3 stats are swollenness, smorts, and chutzpah, things like that. It's all kind of little out there, little off. You can even see from the cover, it's kind of like a joke RPG while still being like fun to play. I have also decided, because we're getting to the points where a lot of tabletop gamers they're having kids. In some cases, the oldest grognard's grandkids. So you want something that you can play with the little tykes. And I've decided to gear it and make it in such a way. There's a reason that the art looks like this, is so that it is consumable not just by adults, but and trust me, I've only played with adults so far and they've all enjoyed it. But it's also going to be playable and consumable by children. It's a super rules light system, very easy to pick up, and there's not going to be any inappropriate art or content or anything in it that won't be suitable for all ages, basically. So that is the solo one. The one I'm getting some help with, thankfully, is its current working title is Orus. We're not sure if we're sticking with that title yet, but it is its own self-contained setting / core book using the Cypher system with the open license. So it is its own contained book. You won't need any other books to play it. You'll just need the Orus book. And the setting has, it's a mixture of like post-apocalyptic, Western, and sci-fi kind of elements going on. I won't get into the world lore too much yet until we start releasing more details about it. It uses the Cypher system, but there are some tweaks that we've made to the Cypher system with it. For instance, it has an initiative free system to allow you to blend action scenarios, what would normally be known as combat, we'll just call them action scenarios, in with non-action scenarios. Since there's no longer the need for an initiative, you don't have to have that stop moment where you're like, all right, we were role-playing, now stop, roll initiative, and then we'll have combat or action. That's not a thing anymore. We don't have to worry about that. There's also rules for dealing with events as their own interactable scenarios. I have all of the rules from my Cypher Foundations book have been expanded upon and brought into here as well. There's a bunch of other things. There's stress mechanics, tags system for a more easy way to add new abilities into existing things like types and foci and stuff by adding tags onto things to help with rules. The tag system also helps with things like adding modifications onto weapons armor, artifacts, even ciphers, things like this. So there's a lot of extras that we've added in here to help improve and modify the cipher system. The other big thing about this is we find there's a lot of settings out there that people are like, oh man, I wish I could like contribute to that or add on to it or stuff like this. That is the one thing with Orus, and we'll get into the world lore and why you might want to build upon it later. But that's the one thing with Orus is it's going to be opened up for you to also make things within the same setting without restriction, aside from the restrictions of the cipher system open license. But I'm not going to restrict you from using the Orus setting. If you want to add on to it, make your own types, make your own lore books or things like this. We want to make Orus, or whatever title we finally settle on, an open living setting that other people can contribute to as well, which is one of the goals of it. So we've got space travel in this. We've got other realms that you're going into within this, and then we have the central area known as Orus, which I want to talk about more, but we're not going to in this video because it's going to get too long. It is something you're going to be able to create in and publish your own works. Like you fully, if you want to fund your own works, you are free to do so. So that is perfectly fine. And I'm hoping this way we can create something cool together. And once we get a little bit closer to at least a cleaned up copy, because right now it's mostly plain text. Although you'll see here, we already have some art to show off. It's going to have that bit of a, like the black and white, like sketchy, like gritty art style to it. So you can kind of get a feeling or flavor of what we're going for here. Last announcement from me is I've just uploaded it to DriveThruRPG, so it's not available to be seen yet. I think I'm going to wait another like day and a half before I can actually like push it public. I have a Cipher System Streamer Graphics Pack. Basically, you want to start doing your own actual plays, because I've seen the Cipher System's been growing a lot. And there's also a lot of people wanting to live stream it or stream about it or anything like this. One of the things keeping them back is the fact that they don't have a graphics package for like overlays, for like borders for around the cameras and maybe for in the background and stuff like this. For absolutely free, it's not even pay what you want. I just set it to free. There is a like graphics package. I got a prefabricated like GM and 4-player like template in there for you to use. I've also got all the different bits and bobs modular, like different sizings, wide, narrow, large, medium, small, of all the different like camera borders, some lines, the Cipher logo, and everything is flavored to have the same like red and white aesthetics as like the Cipher core book cover and stuff like that. So it sort of stands out as being Cipher. So this is completely free. It's a great stepping stone. I mean, you might not want to stick with it forever, but if you just want something to get you into it, maybe for doing like some Cipher one-shots or something, and you just want a quick overlay that stands out as, hey, this is for the Cipher system, this is a great way to get started until maybe you can get or do your own custom stuff afterwards. So that should be helpful for you. Next bit of the news that I've noticed recently, the Wizards of the Coast Creator Summit thing happened. I obviously was not part of that. That's not my bag, and I'm way too small of a channel for that. But I do know people that did attend both physically and digitally, and was even talking with some of them while it was happening. So I got sort of the skinny on some of it. I'm not going to go into details about it. There's plenty of videos of people that were actually attending in one way or another. You could probably check it out. I personally think it was, from everything that I saw about it and people I was talking about it while it was happening and stuff, it's a very mixed bag. There were a few glimmers of hope. The new representatives to deal with the creators, like to interact with them and whatnot, seemed to be positive. There were some glimmers that they wanted to start actually taking some more serious feedback from the community. But at the same time, they took some L's. I don't think they really understood what the summit should be. Like, people were going there expecting that to be a conversation, back and forth. We ask questions, you give answers, then you ask questions, and we give answers. That is not what it was. I would say the majority of it seemed to be, we're going to give you a presentation, maybe you get some questions, and we're probably not going to give you a lot of concrete answers. It was really more of a presentation than anything for a lot of aspects, especially the virtual tabletop, which I got to say did not go over well. I'm not going to go into details of that, but I'm certainly not excited for it. That's for sure. I will stick with just about any of the other major ones right now. Foundry, of course, is my go-to, but I'll still use Roll20, Owlbear Rodeo, or any of the other numerous ones. Yeah, I mean, if I really wanted to do like fancy 3D, I'd probably go with one of the other ones that aren't only devoted to D&D and need possibly Alienware hardware to run. So it's very much a mixed bag. This brings me to my next point. I don't know if I'm excited or afraid or what, but they announced Planescape is coming back. When I started role-playing in the mid-90s, Planescape was my bag. I loved Planescape. Planescape was great, and it had that solidified art style by Tony DiTerlizzi, if that's how you pronounce his name. I probably mispronounced it, but Tony's art style was one of the things. There was a flavor about Planescape that what made it beyond the standard generic fantasy bullshit. It had slang words to it that almost felt like cyberpunk, and it had this like feeling to it. And then there was all like the different like social societies within it, and the rules of belief and the rule of three, and there was something about Planescape I loved, and they're bringing it back. And I have a feeling it's going to make me angry. I hope not. I would love to see it succeed. I've been disconnected from 5e for a while now, like even before the OGL stuff. I would love to see an exciting project come out for it again, to reestablish those member berries for me, to bring back the nostalgia of something I loved without ruining it. So, fingers crossed. I am hoping so hard right now Planescape is a success, because I'd love to see that stuff. This is going to be that point. This is going to be the point for me, whether I just like say I've completely given up on that system or not. Planescape's going to be a tipping point for me. So we'll see. But that does bring me into the next point of news, and that they officially announced that the next edition of D&D is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Yeah, like what we already have, but with new rules. It is still going to be labeled Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It is still going to be labeled the same edition, because all they've done is they've tweaked classes, races, subclasses, spells, the way monsters and encounters work, equipment, how abilities are handled, and pretty much every facet of the game. But other than that, it's exactly the same edition. So they're just going to call it the same thing, which is not going to be confusing at all. Yep. Next bit of news I noticed recently is the Wormwood gaming drama, which has been sort of like, they've dipped in and out of drama for a while now. I'm not going to go into too many details about it. There are some good videos out there of people picking apart the Wormwood gaming stuff. There's like these like sexual assault allegations from one employee to another, and them possibly mishandling it. And of course, to make things better, they did all of their responses on their like reality TV show style YouTube channel, which is not the way you handle sensitive topics at all. They were like, we're being transparent. No, you're kind of being an ass in like a reality TV show thing. There's a whole thing with Wormwood gaming, and I was hopeful for them back in the day. When I saw like Nerdy Woodworking Company, I was like, oh man, like I've got a history in woodworking. I basically grew up in a wood shop out at the farm. My grandfather, when he retired, started a new business doing like woodworking in Antarja. My uncle eventually started his own like carpentry business and stuff like that. I grew up in a wood shop. And I was like, nerdy woodworking, what? And because I was super happy about it. Like I've made my own like wooden DM screens and rolling trays and stuff like that. If you're interested in that stuff, you might want to check it out. Personally, not really my thing, but it's good to know about. Then, of course, there's the other Twitter drama llama stuff happening. Like, is death traumatic to your players? There was a couple people saying that the death of a player character is not conducive with modern RPG play and could actually be traumatic to your players. Okay, this is something you should be handling personally in your session 0. If that's the way you want to play, awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. However, commenting on, belittling someone or calling them out or something for having death in their games is not something you should be doing. Especially in like this was primarily focused around like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. Okay. Death is a part of these games. The mechanics are 99% violent combat. Okay. Death is a thing. There are systems that don't have death mechanics. Look at Tales from the Loop. You play a bunch of kids and it's like kids on bike things with like this like scientific new supernatural element to it. Kind of like a Stranger Things type of thing. Death is not a thing in that game. You can't die. You can get knocked out or taken out of the scene or something, but you can't die. There are games like that. These are not those games. If you want to play it that way, that's fine. But don't bring someone down for playing the game in that method. A lot of people, I'd say the majority of people, are okay with that. If you want to play differently, that's fine. But don't judge them for it. And there was a big thing of people judging other people for still having death in their games in the modern RPG. Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to go away. It's an aspect of life. It's an aspect of dangerous situations, which most of these RPGs are dealing with. You're dealing with excitement, adventure, and dangerous situations. So there's a chance of bodily harm. There's a chance that things can go south. Don't be down on people for that. I don't understand why you would. Also, in the Twitterverse and other social medias, numerous people harassing creators that went to the D&D Creators Summit or attended it, even digitally or online. Why would you do that? These people didn't set this up. These people, whether they like, dislike, or somewhere in between Wizards of the Coast, should be irrelevant for them going to this Creators Summit. They were invited to something to help guide the future of this hobby. Because whether you like it or not, what happens to Wizards of the Coast, what happens to Dungeons and Dragons affects the entire hobby, no matter what game that you play. Because that's what generates a lot of the newer players. That's what gets a lot of the interest in the hobby in general. If it wasn't for Dungeons and Dragons, the hobby would be much more fragile than it is. Harassing these creators that just wanted to go, and a lot of them wanted to go to have their own say because they have a lot of the same concerns as you. A lot of them just wanted to go to get information, and a lot of them went just because, I mean, like, if I got invited to, like, go out there and just, like, get free food and, like, listen to some cool shit about RPGs, despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of Wizards of the Coast right now, I'd probably go. Wouldn't you? You're not supporting them just by going. You're going to see what it's all about. You're going to experience it. You're going to see if you can have some input about it. So for anyone that's still harassing them, and from what I understand, it's still kind of going on a little bit, which is weird. Stop. And these are some like, I've seen harassment for some of the nicest people. Dungeon Dad, Ted from Nerd Immersion. These people often have really good viewpoints. They try to be as plain about their viewpoints as possible. Like Ted from Nerd Immersion, I may not always agree with all of his points, but at the same time, he's very open and very forward with why he feels the way he feels. Sometimes very good with just reporting the facts as he gets them without putting personal flavor on them. Dungeon Dad, I mean, come on. How can you harass him? These are all really nice people. And then like all the other creators they're harassed as well. So leave them alone. They're just trying to do their best. Okay. Harassment isn't needed. engage in conversations, discussions. That's fine. But I have been seeing outright harassments, and it's over the top. It's too much. The last big thing that I've seen, because it's one of the more recent ones within this last week, maybe a few days or whatever, half races are racist. This, I think, is also blown way out of proportion and in a very odd direction. Now, on one hand, Wizards did not make a very good announcement of this. You can make a positive change without having to make it a grandiose gesture of, look at me, I'm being a hero. You can just make the positive change for the sake of positive change. So positive social change, like things like adjusting half races for certain reasons, is fine. But maybe you don't have to make a political statement about it every single time you make a change. Especially in this case, they weren't really taking away half races per se. They were kind of just changing it. They were giving you the ability to mix and match races in the new /same edition of D&D so that you actually have more choices than you used to. They're just getting rid of the old connotation of you are half elf, you are half orc, automatically assuming that the other half is human and that there's like a dilution of pure bloodline and stuff like that. Trying to get away from those like blood purities, just being like, hey, these are just people that can like intermingle and mix amongst themselves, which is probably how they should have explained it. Wizard of the Coast definitely has been taking a lot of L's. And if they don't start getting someone like kind of smarter to deal with these public statements, I think the problem is they're trapped in their own little like bubble. You know, it's the same type of thing as like rich people not understanding poor people's situations. It feels like that same type of mindset. Like Wizard of the Coast is in their bubble and just not able to read the room anymore because they've lived in too nice of a room for too long. They're not reading the room. I'm not saying there aren't times when it's good to take a stance. Maybe not all the time. And maybe not like through little changes like this. Maybe you don't need to mention it every time. I do think it's been blown way bigger than it needs to be. There's a lot of people these days focusing on the negatives. I think we need to change that. I did this as much to catch myself up on the goings on within the RPG community space over the past like X number of weeks that I've been out of it, as well as maybe you didn't know about one or two of these things. So I appreciate any discussion below. Feel free, no matter whether you agree with me or not on a lot of this stuff, post down below. I'd love to hear from you. It's all good all the time. So as always, stay healthy, stay safe, and have a good one, eh?